42 days left for the T20 World Cup. Pakistan has beaten New Zealand, but does it tell us absolutely anything at all? Let's find out. Welcome to Shiny Side. I'm your host, Faris, and we have with us from Houston, Omer Basir. Omer, finally a lot of conversations about selection and stuff, but good to have some cricket back on.
Absolutely, yeah. And, it's the usual suspects, Pakistan versus New Zealand. New Zealand visiting Pakistan with an 11 that doesn't look like their best. But, yeah, we got international cricket, and I'm happy about that.
So let's kick things off quickly with the 30-second summary. So Pakistan won the toss, elected to field. We played the same 11 as last time. New Zealand they lost a wicket after every turn runs, really. They lost 3 in the power play. They were 90 all out. They were never really in it. Shaheen got 3, Babar got a couple, Amir got a couple, Shadab got a couple. So everybody was in the mix in the runs. Pakistan chased it down fairly easily. I guess Usman stood out with a 45 of 34, and that was a nice 26-second summary. So I guess to kick things off, we have to start at the toss, right? So before we even look at the performance, and I know it's hard to do that, in terms of the 11 Pakistan went for, I had a couple of questions and concerns there. So we decided to go with, again, I think Saim, Babar, Usman is probably fair enough. With the bowling, I'm really glad we picked Babar, because for me, Babar is a very clear preference over Osama. So I feel like we need to give him enough games, and that was a good call. I think I spoke about this in the selection show. Now, I'm not sure if you can ever play Shaheen, Amir, and Naseem in the same 11. I feel like, because all 3 of them essentially are really good with the new ball. So you're probably better off playing a Zaman or an Abbas Afridi instead of one of them. And I get, obviously, Shaheen and Naseem are clear shots in the 11, right? So maybe, and since Amir's the one who's kind of on trial, you can maybe leave one of Shaheen and Naseem out and play Zaman or Afridi. What did you make of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with your sentiments. I think the key thing for me was Zaman's form as of late hasn't been really, really good. Although Amir had from his standards, a really good PSL. So I think it was a fair shot to find out how he does back in the international arena. We know he can do well with both, the new ball.
Sorry to cut you off. My thought was rest one of Naseem and Shaheen, but test Amir out, right? But as a combination, you need somebody in the second half, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, all 3 of them, I think, are good enough to bowl in the second half as well. So I think the beauty of these 3 is they can bowl in any phase of the game. So I credit to them there. If we had a Haris or a Zaman, the challenge becomes, So I think more than Zaman, it was, for me, it's Abbas Afridi, right, who we really need to look at, and maybe because he may make he's in line for the 50.
I mean, Wade might have a different view on whether these guys are really good at the death, as you might remember. But Naseem didn't. So it was funny, but lately how Pakistani fans, especially in media, really focus on. They have a very strong recency bias. So Naseem has been the big star lately. His team won the PSL. He was at the crease. He's been the Pepsi ad, right? So if you were in the Pepsi ad as a solo guy, that means you were the shit in Pakistan, right? I think the last guy to be in a solo ad is probably the only guys who have their own ad have probably been Imran Khan, Wasim, and maybe Afridi. The only cricketer not to do it on their own. So having said that, he didn't necessarily have the best game, but I think we also have to kind of give him the fact that this was his first game for Pakistan in 8 months or something, right? So this is good to have him back on the crease.
No, absolutely. And, I love Naseem Shah is my favorite Pakistani bowler. And, man, he was swinging the ball, right? He got those few balls to swing. And that's what he always does, regardless of conditions and all that stuff, right? So he definitely top-notch. And good to see him back. But, yes, I think for the games coming up, I'd like to see rotation and us to try out really our bench and firm up our 15.
I mean, I guess for me, this is a lot about answering some questions, right? Or some question marks. So, I feel like Amir, he bowled a good first over. By the time he came for his second over, they were 3 down, and essentially... So I don't think he was even tested really, right? So it's probably hard to really have a view on, okay, is he how good is he being, etc., etc. Moving on to New Zealand, 59 dot balls. You may be inexperienced, but 59 dot balls in a T20 is just not good enough.
No, I mean, you lose more games, most games if you play that way. So I think that's really the main thing. And they just kept consistently losing wickets. Nobody could ever get settled. I don't think they had a single partnership going. And so, credit to Pakistan for some disciplined bowling, but, I think New Zealand just threw it away.
There's been a lot of talk in our media about New Zealand ki C team, IV, D team, E team. Sure, they're missing players, but I think just to be clear, they're missing about 8 players who are in the IPL. So that includes Trent Bolt, who typically does not even tour with New Zealand anymore. So they're missing 8 guys there, and a couple got injured. So they're missing about, I guess, 10 first choice players, which is quite a bit. I get it. But I think there are other teams. Like England, if England were not playing their first time, they'd probably still be pretty strong. I guess with New Zealand, I guess drop off is a bit more. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, right, last time New Zealand came, there was a similar challenge, but they put on some big scores and they haven't even beaten us, right? So
the guys who were there last time who nobody knew who were Team D were Daryl Mitchell and they were Rachin Ravindra, who are now playing in the IPL, right? So clearly they
right. So obviously for the country of this size, they produce enough caliber, and I think honestly I expect them to bounce back. I think they're better than what we saw today.
Yeah. So I'm going to say two things which are conflicting. Tell me which side you sit on. One is that Saim is a sure shot. We need him. He's a key player for the World T20. And the second one is Saim has played about 10 odd games for Pakistan now and yet to really have a performance worth his name.
I'm in the first camp. I think he's done enough. He's an impact player, and I just need a quick fire 20 from him, and he has done his job. Obviously we expect he can do more, but even today he started off with a really good, first ball they were under pressure, right? And unfortunately he got out, but usually, even if he lost a couple of overs, that's fine. We have a batting lineup that can carry on. So no, I'm from camp one, and I expect him to play every game. And by the end of this, I think we should have answered that question.
Yeah, I would give him my take on the series is very simple. My take is guys who are sure shot, right? Like for me, guys like Shaheen and Naseem, you shouldn't give them more than a couple of games maybe and rest them out, right? But the guys who are the question marks, they should be playing almost every game. So Saim, I want to see him get 5 games for sure. I don't mind if Ifti sit out a few. I feel like Ifti for me has that 6-7 spot nailed down.
Sure.
So
absolutely,
but like Saim should get 5 games. But I think because with Saim it's also a matter of, I think he's a sure shot for me, but I feel like he really needs game time. He's only played 8 games for Pakistan, right? So like 5 more will be super useful.
No, exactly. No, if Babar wasn't captain, it would have been very easy for him to just sit out because he's a sure shot again. I expect him to open the batting for Pakistan, and he's in form. We don't need to see more of Babar. Maybe as captain he can still sit out, but that's.
Maybe if he'd been captain all along, he would have sat out anyway. But the fact he just became captain, like what? Literally his first game today, in fact.
Yeah.
He's now overtaken. I think he's overtaken Wasim Akram as the captain with the most wins for Pakistan. Second, now he's number 2. Only Imran Khan is ahead of him now. Obviously, now there's this T20, so the number of games is higher, but for the sake of the record.
Yeah. Okay.
Babar got out against Bracewell again. There's been a bit of track record there, Babar against spin and Babar against Bracewell in particular. So is that something which teams would be keeping an eye on when they play Pakistan?
I think he definitely plays better against Pacers, for sure. He has, I think, a very good, clear plan on what he does in the initial overs. So I think attacking him with spin is a better option, but I think he's a good enough player that, I expect him to be successful more often than not.
Given the top 4 we played, right? So it's probably hard to argue against it a lot. I mean, we had Babar, before we got to look at the order, we had Babar, Saim, Rizwan, and Usman Khan. Did you think we played them in the right order for you?
I would have wanted Usman to come at number 3. That was.
And is that because of who got out or regardless?
Who got out for sure. But I think for me, he's more of a number 3. That's where he's performed. And given again back to, we were looking to give game time to these guys. This was a perfect opportunity, low score, go play your game without any.
We knew what Rizwan would do, right? Like you said.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, man, the beauty of Rizwan is anytime you start thinking about he may not fit my 11, the guy never, he always delivers, right?
Yeah.
Credit to him. Yeah. He always performs, right? He may not be the one who comes out looking the sexiest, but he performs. So it's.
And I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but if you look at Usman Khan's T20 record, there's a serious drop-off in his average when he bats outside of the top 3. So I think opening and top and three is it's really strong record, but there's a serious drop off. So that's also a question mark, right? So I mean, I know it's just been 1 game, but
no. And the way he, when we talked about him last, we weren't sure if he's of that international level. The way he got out to me, wasn't the greatest, positive for him. But again, he needs game time, and we'll see how he does. But glad Irfan was out there. He got some balls, and hopefully they both. If we should win the toss, bat first, and let these guys.
Yeah, that's the thing, I mean, this is one of those things, right? Where just for the sake of the series and for entertainment, right? Pakistan's obviously the stronger side. So if we get to bat first, it'll be a better game to watch. But also, I think we'll be able to test out our batting. Otherwise, we may be chasing such scores in every single game. So. Okay, so we spoke about the top 4. Now, once we lost the 3rd wicket, if this was a real match, I would have liked to see Shadab come in. I mean, Irfan Niazi is an interesting one because the way I see it, he's an unlikely one to make it to the squad. But I guess given that he's there, and in fact, to be honest, I feel like had Azam Khan been fit, he may not have even made the 11 today. But But what do you make of him coming in at 5? And I mean, to be honest, he made like a run ball at 11 or something, so he wasn't really exactly killing it. But what did you make of it, Niazi? And him coming in that position.
This series for me, this series for me is giving game time to these guys, right? We have them in there because there are slots to fill in the 15, and we need to try them out. So I think it was happy with that. I think honestly, we need to put him in more pressure situations. So I'm okay with, even if this was a higher score, let them go in and let's see what these guys do, right? I think that's more important than, yes, we want to win the game, but to me, I rather have a look at these guys, and they're selected because we think they can perform. So let's put them under pressure and see.
The other thing for me is I personally feel like Shadab should be batting much higher. Now we've spoken about this before on other shows, right? But Pakistan tends to bat Shadab at the death and Ifti in the middle overs, and the PSL teams do it the other way around. And those two guys are probably two of the most key players for their PSL teams. But Pakistan continues to get it wrong. So I hope I get it. This year you have to make it fun bet, but I think we need to make that switch.
Yeah, to your point, if once the squad's formed up, and we were not looking to try people out, I think Shadab is our number 4, right? 4 or 5, right?
Because 5 perhaps.
Fakhr comes in. Fakhr comes in, and he has
Usman or Rizwan. I guess 2 of them will play.
Right. So between the 3 of them, they take the top 2, the number 3 and number 4 spot, and then Shadab. Yes, he needs to come in early, and because he especially in spin, he's awesome.
And I guess I get your point, right? Because we're going to select Shadab for sure anyway. So I get it, because we can also test him out, give him that experience of that number 5 slot after the series, right? Because this is the last series before we announce our initial score at least. So fair point.
I would again, for the sake of keeping these guys fit, I would rest Naseem, Shaheen, and Shadab even, and bring in Imad Wasim, see what he does. We expect him to deliver, but let's get him that international exposure again.
And my next question for you was, it's a 5-match series. One is washed out. The next game is actually tomorrow. There's absolutely no turnaround. What 11 would you want to play tomorrow, whether it's for rest or for otherwise?
Yeah, so I think from the batting perspective, Fakhr, I'd like to bring Fakhr in, and really Babar. We don't have a backup keeper anymore, so Rizwan has to play. So it's really between Babar and Ifti, right? So if we drop Ifti, if we got a few overs in today, which I think we need to continue doing. But honestly, it would have been Babar, but he's captain now, so maybe Ifti for Fakhr for Ifti, and then I'd like Zaman and Abbas Afridi to both come in, and Shaheen and Naseem can.
I mean, I kind of agree with so I feel like they'll probably at least play one of Shaheen and Naseem, because they'll be a bit conservative with this. Having said that, I'd be fine if they leave both out and try the other 2 guys. I think, but given that this is two games in a row, I mean, Shaheen is and I guess before we wrap up, by the way, I'm gonna go back to what we started with, but we haven't really spoken about Shaheen's bowling, right? So we had a two ball game a couple of days ago, and Twitter was full of Shaheen is back. Was that one off, or do you think he's actually looking a bit better?
He looks a bit better. I'd like to see him over the course of, I like to see him get at least one more game, maybe the last game of the series, and we'll see how he comes back. But if he looked good, he looked in rhythm for sure. He delivered that Yorker at the end, which is, I think he's been struggling with as well. So I think there are signs, but again, for me personally, I'd like to see him at 90 miles per hour, consistently with 4 overs, swinging the new ball, and now we have the shine, right, that we all want.
Just before we wrap up, one thing, I just saw Amir's post-match interview. And what I liked about that interview was, I mean, as I've said on the show multiple times, I'm not so convinced he should be there. But I think that he was very clear on what his method is and what his limitations are, and how he goes about his game, right? So I guess the fact that he's actually been surviving in the leagues, I'll call it surviving. I won't say he's been excelling. He's been surviving, but he's figured out how to go about it, how to read the pitch, how to, what works on what kind of track, etc. And he was also very confident of when he was asked about the World Cup as being in the West Indies, which he's played the CPL the last 3 seasons, right? He said essentially it's like, the term he used was, it's like an open book exam, right? So for me, playing there means I'm going with the open book. I already know what's there, so it's about applying it. I don't know how accurate that is, but I think someone like him could be a really good person to have in the group, given that he's the fast bowler who's actually played there the most, perhaps.
Yeah, so if you think about the last few big games we've had in the World Cups and T20s in general, like Haris Rauf against Kohli and all those situations, right? What if you had an Amir in that situation, right? We know Amir, we expect Amir to go between 30 and 40, I think, in his 4 overs, right? But I don't think we expect him to go at 45 plus, 50 plus. I don't think that risk is there. He has experience. So even when when he was a younger bowler, he had the talent, but he was a very smart bowler. So there are things in his positive. If he performs, that's where he will really, really put pressure on some of the bowlers we have. So he does have a lot going for him. He just needs to perform, and then the off-pitch stuff needs to stay out. That's where I know all of us have those issues. If he manages to keep clean from that perspective, he will be giving serious competition. I don't think Haris Rauf, based on recent experience, walks into the 11 if we have a firing Amir. I think there is a discussion.
And this last point, you mentioned you want Imad Wasim in tomorrow. Yes. Is it a surprise that he was left out? But given that his situation is a bit like Amir, where he's trying to make a bit of a comeback, his place, as far as I'm concerned, is by no means guaranteed in the 11, if not the 15. So was it a surprise not seeing him in?
It was, but I think based on how, especially Babar has been selecting his 11s, he typically goes with a let's win the game first, and then go with my strengths first, experiment a little. So it wasn't too much of a surprise, but I really hope they bring him in. And again, I mean, you know what you're getting with Imad. There's no surprise. And I think especially what I'd like to try him out on is if we're resting one of Shaheen or Naseem, give him the new ball. Now you have an extra option. And,
Makes sense.
And he can.
Okay, good stuff, Omer. Thank you for being on. For those of you watching, if you have a view on what 11 we should play and of the batting order we played today and so on, please leave a comment. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. And we'll be back tomorrow night after the game. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.